everything that we used to know is no longer true, and it's just it's exciting and tiring at the same time. I think. Well, that's the way I feel about life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you up to these days? Give people a bit of background of what you're up to, because it's super interesting.
Last year I decided to close down the fund and give money back to investors. And at the time it was partly because the way when I'd come into the industry, I sort of came through as an analyst, and I used to ask what I thought were difficult questions, and then when I came to an answer, I go, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me, and then you get quite a clear vision of where the world was going or how everything was interconnected. And then over the last sort of few years, I started to it just became that world has seemed to have died, if that makes sense. So I don't know if it's purely central bank activism or just just we are moving into a different era, perhaps. I don't know. But I really, I lost the sort of feeling that I had an edge on where things are going. And so it just made sense for me to step back and give money back. And so now I'm basically just thinking about the world, and then I write my thoughts on my website, which is, russellclark.com, Russell with a hyphen, clark.com. But I must say, I find it's been liberating because, it's in a way sort of saying, okay, let's go back to the beginning, have a look at what works, what doesn't work, and let's try and understand where we are. I think there are many things in the last year or so that have really confounded me. For example, I think I'm not sure. Last time I talked about food inflation, perhaps to you, Raoul, but I was sort of highlighted about a year ago to a lot of people, and even when I was still managing money, that food prices were going to go to the roof. And so, when I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, well, this stops central banks from doing QE. And what we've seen is food prices continue to roof higher, and the Fed's still buying securities on this sort of incredible basis. And, so it's like, okay, everything I used to understand doesn't sort of hold together. So now I'm looking around, trying to understand things a bit better. And then we'll see. Once I've got a stronger grip on how the world works, I think, I'll look for ways to play that.
It's interesting. I did a similar thing to you back in 2005, that I opted out of running a hedge fund and started writing. And I found that writing process immensely useful because you organize your thoughts better than you do when you're in the thick of the action of, having to live by monthly P&Ls and monthly NAV. It's a really useful process.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, personally, you're probably a bit different to me. Personally, my natural default is laziness. So I'm very happy to lie in bed and do nothing. So unless I set up a structure that forces me to do something, I'll do nothing. I don't know where it's come from, but when I need to lose weight, I sign up for a half marathon, or if I need to learn a language, I sign up for a test in a year or something, just so I have motivation. So the website acts as that sort of motivation. Otherwise, I just sort of do nothing. I think not nothing, but it's sort of working well. I mean, what I found is that I think the first time I ever came on Real Vision, I talked about shale with you.
That's right.
And and the thing is, I looked at shale and I went, this makes no sense to me because it doesn't make any money. Why is anyone doing this? And what was interesting is I think that was correct. There was a lot of shale companies did exactly go to the wall. They were capital destruction machines. But the weird thing I started to notice is it might actually be the real deal. To my surprise, and it's just going through that. And when you're managing money, it's a little bit hard because if you commit to one view on something and then you raise money on the back of that view, the threshold for you changing your opinion suddenly goes through the roof because you're going to go back to people and say, oh, actually, shale is the real deal. Whereas when you're more independent and free, you can look at it and go, actually, the data now is coming in very differently to how I expected. And that's exactly what's happened recently. It's like, I must say, I thought when they started to go through this huge inventory of old wells in this drilled, uncompleted wells in the States, I thought they were going to find that these wells were empty. They had no oil or gas. They were just drilled to raise money. And so you'd see productivity collapse. And the opposite's actually happened. Productivity's sort of gone up a lot. And that's been like also sort of mind opening for me, because it explains a lot of these sort of weird things. Like I look at US budget deficit, you could look at the Fed, I look at, a lot of things and think, God, the dollar should just get absolutely crushed. And all it does is stay very strong, and very strong against, currencies like Russian ruble, Turkish lira, of course. But it's, I think perhaps we're in the shale revolution. I suspect maybe I've underestimated. And again, it just feeds back into this.
What you're thinking is US energy independence is a larger factor than people imagine. Therefore, the US is exporting less dollars into the world. Is that part of the thesis?
What I found is extending an idea too far, that like, okay, they're not going to export dollars and there's not enough dollars. And I like that extension, because I find that they're not exactly joined up. There's an idea behind them that's okay, but it's not exactly joined up. I think a much better way of thinking about it is the shale technology works. It does keep increasing productivity, but the only country with the infrastructure to use it properly is the US. So this gives them a long-term structural energy advantage in. And you can really see it. I think I say it since through some research too, but it's been staggering to see like natural gas, LNG prices in Europe and Asia tripling, quadrupling in some cases, and US prices are still around the $5 per cubic feet type thing. And when I look at shale, what I expected to see is maybe natural gas prices stay low, but oil prices moving much higher, because shale is naturally much better for gas than for oil. But what we see is US energy prices stay relatively low, and so the world that we are used to from like the 70s onwards, when the US was reliant on energy imports, maybe that's dead. Maybe that's what we're seeing, is that now the US doesn't need to rely on foreigners for anything really, because they export food, now export energy. Maybe the world we lived in is now dead. And I like that, because the world has changed. The financial world has changed substantially from how it used to trade maybe 10, 5, 6, 7 years ago.